Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete episode 13 of our Rimworld Ice Sheet Survival series. Last time we left off after an episode full of trading, and today we begin with some large-scale food production. One of the key events of the last episode happened near the end, as Cambiar purchased 150 units of agave. And that means we now once again have both meat and plant matter available, and using both we can cook ourselves some pemmican. Now, make no mistake about it, this food is not going to be for Cambiar. Instead, it will be used to feed his Muffalo. Now, normally, the go-to animal food in this game is Kibble. Kibble is also made from both meat and plant matter, and unlike Pemmican, it only requires the butcher table to be made. On top of that, Kibble can be produced very quickly, so you might now rightfully ask why we're making Pemmican instead. And the reason is quite simple: Pemmican is more cost-effective. In Rimworld, when you combine raw foods and make meals out of them, the nutritional value of that meal will always be higher than the sum of the raw food that went into it. The difference between the various meals is only how much higher, and this is where Pemmican clearly has an edge over Kibble. While Kibble has a nutrition gain of 25% over the sum of its raw components, Pemmican absolutely shines here with a gain of 60%. That means with Pemmican we get more nutritional value for less raw ingredients, and considering the fact that plant matter is a pretty rare thing out on the ice sheet, we will definitely take this cost effectiveness over the quicker production process. Now there is also nutrient paste, which would be even more efficient, but it cannot be automatically eaten by animals, and so we would have to manually dispense the meals for the Muffalo. However, I would like to stay within the boundaries of what I think the game intended here, so Pemmican it is. Alright, and here we are. From 75 units of meat and 75 units of agave, Cambiar just made 240 units of pemmican. And 1 unit of pemmican has the exact same nutritional value as 1 unit of meat or 1 unit of agave, which means we just increased the nutritional value of those components by a ratio of 150 to 240. All of that pemmican will now be brought up to the Muffalo, while the meals can be hauled back into the storage room, where they will be forbidden, just like the pemmican reserves, because I want Cambiar to continue to eat human meat. Now, at the moment we don't have any, which is why he's consuming milk here, but one can always hope for another small-scale raid in the future. For today we send Cambiar off to bed and skip ahead to the next morning. And that morning begins with the research. In the last episode we already started the research project stone cutting, and since it is a rather quick project, I think Cambiar will finish it today. And here we are, barely 3 hours later, and stone cutting is successfully researched. This means we can now build a stonecutter's table to turn stone chunks into stone blocks, but before we're able to do that we need a bit more steel. Once we have everything, we will then construct the stonecutter's table outdoors. Yes, that is not the most ideal spot. We get work speed penalties from the temperature and from being outdoors, but the close proximity to the stone chunks is hopefully going to make up for that. I was thinking about putting it inside the stables with the Muffalo, but then Cambiar would probably try to constantly eat the Muffalo's pemmican. So we'll have it outside for the moment, but we're also not going to use it extensively for the next few days. To get us started, Cambiar can make some sandstone blocks out of the nearby sandstone chunks, with 1 chunk producing 20 blocks. While Cambiar is cutting away, we have an escape pod crash very close by, a good sign as it could at least temporarily solve our human meat issues. We now have 80 stone blocks made, and that is a good amount for the time being, so let's haul them back and Cambiar can eat some dinner. As he heads off to bed, we are then interrupted by a ransom demand, but I think I already mentioned that in the last episode or in the one prior to that. Nicole here has been a member of our colony for maybe half a day at best, and I don't really think she's worth the 4,000 silver the pirates ask for. As we watch Cambiar sleep here, I think I can also quickly mention that we successfully survived the month of summer, as we have actually just passed the first few days of autumn. Out on the ice sheet, summer is the only month where infestations are a real danger, and so Cambiar will now once again be safe inside of the mountain for the next 3 seasons. Once the next summer comes around we should be prepared though, but we'll get to that in due time. Now Cambiar's morning starts by hauling the dead body of the crash-landed survivor back into the base, and afterwards he can continue with a bit of stone making. We now have another 40 to haul into the storage room, and so we are now up to 135, enough to build a small structure. However, up next on the to-do list is butchering. We have the corpses of 2 Muffalos, a polar bear and a human to chop into pieces, and Cambiar can get right on that. Once the room is filled with meat and leather, he can then start hauling, but not for long because it's soon time to head off to bed. Cambiar's arrest, however, is also unfortunately interrupted prematurely, as we have a raid of 2 Scythers attacking the base. So far, I believe we only ever had one at a time, so there is a realistic chance that one of them makes it past our traps, but then at least our turrets would get some action. However, not only did I completely forget to turn them on, both Scythers also fall after just 1 trap each. And even better than that, they fall, but they are not dead. And this means we can now perform 2 very lucrative operations on both of them, removing the blades that both Scythers have attached instead of arms. Those are the weapons that make Scythers so incredibly dangerous in melee combat, and they can only be removed from Scythers that are down but not dead. They also have a ridiculous market value of 2,000 silver each, and we can remove 2 per Scyther. So that's 8,000 silver we can gain here. In reality, of course, it will be a bit less than that, because we will in all likelihood be forced to sell them way below market value. Still, I think it cannot be overstated how incredibly convenient this is. Even if we get really horrible prices, we should still be able to make a lot more money than Cambiar is used to, which then of course opens up further opportunities. We are also using the shutdown operation here after removing the blades. This will deactivate the Scythers and effectively kill them. We can then later on disassemble their corpses and salvage a few more valuable materials. Now we also have a solar flare strike the ice sheet again, but Cambiar is about to head off to bed in a few moments, so it likely won't affect him all that much. And yes, before he wakes up, the solar flare already comes to an end again, and just a few seconds later we also have some positive news, as another escape pod crashes down on the ice sheet. Now this one is interesting because Chuckles right here is actually a cannibal. And believe me, I would have loved to rescue him and add him to the colony. However, apart from being a cannibal, this guy is just so incredibly useless. He cannot haul and he cannot fight, and that alone pretty much already disqualifies him. So yes, Chuckles will see our colony, however very likely not alive. Cambiar's next day then starts with a lot of hauling. First, the remains from the butchering session have to be cleaned up, and then Cambiar heads out for the corpse. On his way, we can also see that there is another corpse lying around, and this one is dead for 12 days already, so I'm not quite sure how it got here, but we'll make sure to bring it back as well. And then, even more good news, it rains Pemmican from the sky. A crashed cargo pod drops 185 units of Pemmican here, so those will now also be added to the list of things to haul. Now the first body has already made it back to the base, but Cambiar will head out again soon. We will have to make quite a few trips here, 3 alone for the Pemmican, and unfortunately it is far away at the other end of the map, so we probably won't be able to bring back everything in one day. However, Pemmican doesn't deteriorate that quickly, and we should be fine leaving it out here for a day or 2. We might even consider the dead body here a bit more important. It is already down to only 1/3 of its hit points, and therefore it will probably disappear very shortly. Still, neither corpse nor Pemmican are things that we desperately need to take care of today, and so for the time being, Cambiar can head off to bed. After his breakfast, Cambiar then heads out again on the next morning, and with even more cargo pods crashing down, there is no end in sight for the hauling trips. This time the pods contain 204 units of hops, and that is plant matter which we can of course use for the Muffalo. So we will now also have to haul all of that back, and with that I think Cambiar's schedule for the next 2 days is pretty much filled. And Randy Random doesn't stop throwing things at us. This time it's another crash-landed survivor, however once again someone who's incapable of hauling, so the whole surviving thing probably won't last long. In the meantime, Cambiar has successfully made 2 more hauling trips, adding another load of Pemmican and another dead body to the storage rooms. The final trip of the day then brings back the last of the Pemmican, and with that our reserves are now up to 290, and for once Cambiar is also allowed to get a taste here, before he then once again goes to sleep. The night passes by without any incidents, and so we're back on the next morning, you guessed it right, with even more hauling. Here we can see Cambiar bringing 75 units of hops back to the base, and there was also one thing that we completely forgot about for the last few days, and that is milking the Muffalo. So Cambiar quickly takes care of that and then also brings the Muffalo some new food, and then he heads out for one more trip. On his way back then he almost gets flattened by another group of cargo pods, and these ones contain some flake. Flake is a mood increasing drug and therefore pretty valuable, with a value of 14 silver per unit. We have 33 units right here, so that is once again a good amount of cash, provided of course we manage to haul all of it back. And with the appearance of a tornado here, I wasn't quite sure about that. The tornado here passing by close to all of the cargo drops. Luckily though it didn't destroy anything, and it eventually vanished a few moments later. Cambiar at that point already fast asleep, and so we pick things back up on the next morning with Cambiar making another trip for the hops. While he carries back the remaining 54 units, we also get another ransom demand. The price for Nicole here has gone down a bit, but we are still not biting. Late at night then, Cambiar makes one last trip, this time for the flake, and with all 33 units in storage and forbidden, we don't want Cambiar to go on a drug binge here, we can once again send our favorite cannibal off to bed. While he's asleep then, one of the solar panels breaks down, but we have enough electricity coming in at the moment, so we will have him get a good night's sleep first and then repair it in the morning. Once the repairs are made, I quickly want to take care of something that was addressed in the comments in the last episode, where user Jake Shepard pointed out that it was probably a good idea to roof over the turrets and the traps. And yes, Jake, that is a good idea indeed. It makes the turrets a bit harder to hit and protects all of our defenses from nasty things like toxic fallout. Once again, thank you for pointing that out, and if anyone else has ideas for improvements around the base, then of course feel free to leave them in the comments down below. The roof is now constructed, and for the first time in a while we have no more hauling to do, and that means we can once again focus on a bit of butchering. We have no more human meat for Cannibal Cambiar in storage, but 2 human corpses are waiting, and so Cambiar can once again fire up the chopping block. Once again, the night passes by without anything worth mentioning, and on the next morning we can once again take care of the Muffalo. First of all, we will increase the stockpile here a bit, that way we can give it a few reserves and the Muffalo doesn't constantly run out of food. With the Muffalo awake again, we can also quickly milk it, and if I'm not mistaken, we should also already be about halfway towards the next shearing day. With the Muffalo's food supplies increased and no more cleaning jobs inside of the base, Cambiar can now once again start researching. And our research project for today, that is going to be batteries. Now, batteries is a research project that I neglected for a long time, simply because we weren't really depending on a steady flow of electricity. Plus, with 2 wind turbines and 2 solar panels, we almost always had enough, and so power shortages were for the most part never really a problem. However, now we have 3 turrets, and those might come into play sooner or later, and it could be catastrophic if we had no power at that point. Now, I'm also thinking about completely replacing the conduits in our base with batteries, because if I'm not mistaken, that should completely get rid of the annoying ZZT event. A conduit cannot short-circuit if we have no conduits, at least that is the way I hope it works. Once again, I also quickly declined the ransom demand here. Yes, the price once again went down significantly, but it is still far above Cambiar's pay grade. Regarding the batteries, we will talk a bit more about them when we build them. The core principle is rather simple. Batteries store electricity, however they do so at a loss. So right now 100% of the electricity we produce goes into the power grid. With batteries that number would be significantly lower, but that is the price to pay for a constant reserve of power. Now I have to admit I also almost forgot about the corpse over here, so let's have Cambiar quickly haul that back. And just as he's done, another potential corpse appears. With another escape pod crashing down, we have another survivor out on the ice sheet. However, I have no intentions of letting a pyromaniac into our base, so we will once again let the hypothermia do its thing. On the next morning then, our survivor here has frozen to death, and Cambiar can haul the corpse back to the base. The rest of the day is then spent researching. However, Cambiar doesn't quite finish the project. That has to wait until the next day, where in the early afternoon we finally get the message: Cambiar has successfully researched batteries. And with another technological milestone made, I think we can slowly wrap the episode up. I will have to think a bit about how we structure our power grid going forward, so apologies if the episode is a tad bit shorter than usual. I admit I was also mildly surprised by the lack of disaster in this one. Apart from the mechanoid raid in the beginning, we didn't really see much action, which is of course a good thing. It allowed us to haul a ton of stuff today, but I suspect it also made for a slightly less thrilling episode. Now, of course, I don't want to taunt Randy Random here. I am perfectly fine with the current rather peaceful situation, but I also have a feeling that won't last for the entirety of the next episode. For today, I still hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then go ahead and leave a thumbs up. And like I said earlier, if you have any ideas to improve the base, then let me know in the comments. Also, if you have not subscribed already and want to stay up to date, then go ahead and click on the trophy icon on the screen and help the channel grow by becoming a subscriber. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.